We all are unique individuals. We all have our own unique history that definitely lives in our bodies and in our minds. We all have different levels of resources and what we have accessible to us to meet ourselves. I'm not entirely sure why I was able to do what I did, because I had a pretty tumultuous upbringing and I read a lot, but I didn't really have a big resource pool. So I feel like it's an interesting dance. I'll say that.
Welcome to the Healing Blueprint. I'm your host, Jill Briansky. On this podcast, I speak with experts from traditional and holistic healing modalities. And together, we share insights, tools, and practical guidance so you can create your own healing blueprint. Let's move into today's episode and get started. Chris Cipra, who is a meditation teacher, a yoga teacher, and does 1,000 different amazing things. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yeah, and meditation is one of those things that tends to be either people love it or they're like, no, that's just not for me. How did you get in the camp that loves it?
Yeah, I hear that all the time from a lot of students. Like, I just can't meditate. My mind is too busy. And I had discovered meditation over 25 years ago. I'd been in a corporate career for 15 years. I was transitioning out of it. I wasn't thriving in that environment, really unhappy. And I was exploring, and I just was super curious. And I had gone back to school and I was taking classes, and somebody had introduced me to a yoga class, and it was fine. But another person that I had met introduced me to kind of more of a yoga class that really was more about being present and just exploring the inner body. And so um, he had just come from India and sat a 10-day meditation and had encouraged me to sit it. And I had never meditated before. I was in school and I was training for the AIDS ride, and I was studying for finals, and I was just like, there's no way, I don't have time for any of this. And just through synchronicity, like seeing, the word Vipassana, that's the meditation I did at the time, and still do, kind of coming to me in different ways in a book I was reading and in conversation, like I'd never heard that word before. And so, after hearing it for the third time, I went, oh, crap, I think I'm supposed to sit that meditation. And I had never, ever meditated before. And it was 10 days of silence, 10 hours a day of seated silent meditation. I know, right? Most of my friends didn't think I could do it.
I imagine most people would have a hard time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I trusted and went to the meditation, and I'm a good student. I listened to all of the instructions. I applied them the best I could. I met my monkey mind for the first time in my entire life. And now I understand why, it really does require 10 days to kind of give us the space to really sit in that and to move through those initial layers that are at the surface of a lot of activity to kind of settle in. I mean, I'd never really done any type of energy work or grounding, or, later I became a massage therapist and a social worker and, did all kinds of other things. But at that time, I didn't really have a big toolbox, like a lot of, what I had already studied was mostly psychology and, mental space. And so, the 10 days really allowed me to settle in and explore and notice what's going on inside. Like I'd never really, like from a scientific standpoint, like just sort of be like, that's interesting. I never knew, that there's like this whole universe and world going on inside. And then after the meditation ended, the way I showed up in my life was different. I had access to response rather than reaction. Um, I had a deep connection to a peaceful center inside of me. Not always. I mean, that did deepen over time and the more meditation I did. But it became a resource for me. And when I came back into my life, that's, I think, when I like really fell in love with meditation, like the effects that it had on me.
So 10 days,
Mm-hmm.
10 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
you were sitting and what? You said that you met your monkey mind. I'm not sure everybody knows what that is, but
Mm-hmm.
how did your type of meditation or what they gave you as that type of meditation, Vipassana, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How does that work?
Yeah, so the tradition that I study is Vipassana meditation from the Theravada lineage, and my teacher S.N. Goenka has since passed, but his assistant teachers carry on the teachings. And it's 10 hours a day and you get breaks in between. That's one of the first things people ask me, like, there's no way, and you can move, you don't have to be like a still statue. Like I think a lot of people portray like in commercial magazines and things or pictures. And I feel like in such a supportive environment where you don't have to worry about cooking your own food or, answering any emails or, tending to anything but yourself, like everything around you is supported and quiet. That's when everything internally, I feel like it's loud or it's like it comes to the forefront so that you can see what's you and what's, you know, not you, because you're not in this like outer container of a wider culture. But yet, I also felt like I faced where I've internalized the outer culture, and that's unconscious, you start to go below the surface of the mind. That the longer that you're there, I understand why you need 10 days, because the longer that you're there, the more you settle, you kind of bump into yourself, emotions arise, discomfort comes up, pain in the body, pain in your mind. And then I'm trying to remember who it is that says that your emotions last about 90 seconds. There's a book that was written, I think Rosenberg, maybe I'm trying to remember her first name, but like if we can just stay with ourselves and be with what is arising. For me, I had done so much studying, like reading. I'm a really big intellectualizer. Like I started to feel the experience in my body rather than just thinking about it. And then I started to have the experience of the mind and the body not being separate, where sensation arises and then maybe there's, and maybe it's fire in the body and I'd have fiery thoughts. There might be anger that arises. Maybe there's an old story from childhood that comes forward. And it gave me an opportunity to just be with it rather than perpetuating the story or feeding it or locking it deeper into the tissue in my body. Um, Forgot your question already. If I answered it, I don't know.
I mean, we were talking about monkey mind and Vipassana and how it works for you. And it sounds like it has really been this connection for you that, wait, I'm not separate things. My body, my mind, my
Yeah.
energy, they aren't separate. They're all connected. And you happen to have the courage, which I commend you for throwing yourself deep into the
Yeah.
fire in this 10-day thing. I can imagine a lot of people hearing that would be like, I don't know if that is for me. Does that mean I can't do this type of meditation?
Yeah, I'm grateful that I was a little younger and maybe a little more naive to throw myself into it. Um, I don't remember big chunks of my childhood. Um, so now as a licensed social worker, I understand, things, I know you have a deep toolbox too, about nervous system regulation and resourcing and embodiment. But at the time, I didn't really know that that's what I was doing. I was just in this crash course of coming back into my body after having been, you know, s- so programmed in these deep roots of like leaving, presence, leaving myself. And so this was this deep reparative process of coming home to myself, and on the mat, for an hour, you may get distracted and then come back 100 times. And then maybe the next meditation, like I'm so there and focused, the instructions are very clear. You're not left hanging, like wondering what to do. You really are told how to work and how to make it happen. Um, but every hour was very different, and you just keep coming back. You just keep coming back. And so now we know with science, those neural pathways get carved out over repetition, So at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. But today I understand, like, I really was repairing a deep connection to myself and witnessing from an experiential level how the mind and the body aren't separate, And so when I did step into yoga, I did it from a place of meditation. And now I teach yoga and I practice yoga. But it's from a meditative embodiment sort of place, because they're not separate for me. And so as we're moving and breathing, that's a meditation, like that's what I would say to people that feel like they can't meditate. Start like a mindfulness practice when you're walking or practicing yoga. Maybe not turn the music off and just listen to your breath within. And that's meditation. You don't have to like take this big giant bite of a 10-day. But you can start to experience that. And I didn't have the language for it at the time, but later, just studying and getting my teacher training, I started to get the words for it. Like I understood that what I was doing in that time was connecting myself to my inner witness. And we all have it. We all have this part of ourselves that can witness that we're thinking. It's the part that isn't thinking or isn't wrapped up in the swirl of the emotion or being taken down by the intensity of what's happening, but it's that part that can watch what's happening. And so the more that we practice that, the more that becomes, stronger. And so I bring that into everything I do now. There's the part of me that feels the feelings and I'm like, yeah, this sucks. I'm angry or whatever. But then there's the part of me that just has this deep, deep knowing that this too is going to pass. This too isn't forever. Everything is changing, because I've explored that through these internal spaces in my body and on my meditation cushion. So it's kind of a mini cliff notes of how meditation shows up for me.
And you're making it accessible for other people. And as you're talking, I'm having this visual of Julia Roberts in Eat, Pray, Love. And it sounds very similar to almost what your experience was, sort of this sort of aggressive reaction to having to sit for so long that over time starts to lessen. Do you notice that the same thing happens to people that aren't taking that big chunk and saying,
Mm.
hey, I'm going to just immerse myself in this for a week or longer and see what happens? The people who are just like, I'm going to dip my little toe in and I'm going to start with a yoga, start with a walking meditation.
Yeah.
Do you see over time if they start to settle with it as well?
That's a really good question because I think about, we all are unique individuals. We all have our own unique history that definitely lives in our bodies and in our minds. We all have different levels of resources and, what we have accessible to us to meet ourselves. I'm not entirely sure why I was able to do what I did because I had a pretty tumultuous, upbringing and, I I read a lot, but I didn't really have a big resource pool. So I feel like it's an interesting dance. I'll say that. Like, I feel like it's accessible to everybody, and yet I feel like there needs to be a deep, like, checking in with yourself. Like, is this the right time? Do I have resources to meet myself? We all have different, levels of trauma that we hold in our body. And now I'm a trauma informed yoga therapist. So, like, I understand, like, just blowing, like, sitting on a yoga or a meditation cushion for 10 days, just blowing yourself open isn't the right choice for everybody or at the right time, So, um, maybe taking it in baby steps or gathering those resources, meeting yourself the best you can in the moment. And just know that it's just to keep coming back to yourself. And I also believe that even though this is a very deeply, individual practice, you're quiet, you're alone, you're not talking to anybody in this particular type of style of meditation. I also feel like we do some healing in relationship and in community. So having a therapist or a trusted friend, that you can process some of your experiences with, after time for integration, after I come out of a retreat, I am not ready to just fully submerge myself back into our culture and the world. And so taking time. So I'm going to answer that question that it's accessible to everybody, and yet it's very individual, like, depending on where you're at and what you might need.
I love what you're saying about the support piece and making sure that there's either a therapist or friend or somebody that you can process what comes up for you, because perhaps that's one of the scariest parts for people is I don't know what's under there. I don't know what I'm going to see. I don't know what I'm going to find. I don't know that I'm gonna like it, and therefore I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. But what you're saying is, yes, all this stuff is there and you carry it with you, right? Just like you did until it arises and you look at it and then you have a choice. Do I want to witness this or get absorbed in it?
Yeah, because we know that the way out is through. We know that. And even though we might not think that these unconscious patterns and stories and experiences that do live in our bodies are driving our behavior or coming up in our lives, they absolutely are. You know, we're just not aware that they are. And my life changed after that first meditation in a really big way. And some of my relationships, my friend relationships shifted. I didn't, I had some tools to handle it because of the meditation, of being able to stay with myself, because I had a long history of abandoning myself, in order to face life and to engage with others. And, staying home in my center was now in my toolbox. I had this amazing resource, but I also had built relationships upon me needing to abandon and people in my life expecting me to abandon. So there was a shift that happened in my friend circle, but I also had, like, wonderful people in this meditation community that I could lean into. I had a trusted therapist that I could talk to about this. Not everybody left. I don't want to scare everybody as I'm talking about, like, meditation's great, but there were some relationships that shifted. And even though in the moment that was painful, in the long run, this was a homecoming for myself. This was an integration that was a long time coming, and a deep, deep healing that has allowed me to claim more and more of myself. And, has been a tool that has carried me through all of life's change. And we've had a lot of life change, collectively and individually, especially, like, in the last decade or so, like, as we come into some more challenging times. Like, I am so grateful that I have this at my root now. And I would sit, like, a 10-day meditation almost every year since 2001 when I did my first meditation. So it just keeps building on itself, so that when even like when the pandemic happened and when challenges happen, like I feel the feelings and the grief and the frustration or the fear, but I also have this place inside of me that's a refuge, and a place that I can really anchor inside myself so that I don't lose the balance of my mind in the moment. And I feel like the gift of what that has been, I'll segue into the work I do now, because I think I've been able to do that. And what we know now with science telling us, about nervous system regulation, and I feel like I've been able to be like the governing nervous system so that I can help regulate the nervous systems in the environment, whether that was teaching yoga online or in person in the park, or the individual work that I do with people that are really struggling, in their lives. I was a massage therapist for a long time, and I don't do massage work anymore. But through that process, it's like I discovered, the energy that lives within me is also the energy that extends out through my arms and my hands. And so, like, just putting my hands on people's bodies, I can now share the anchoring that I've done and the work that I've done for myself. I can lend that to someone else so that they might be able to feel that anchoring, so that maybe they can face some of those scary places within, and then learn how to like resource themselves so that they can, you know, build on that for themselves.
which is such a beautiful gift for people. And as you're talking, something is running through my mind that there's a saying, which I know that you're aware of, that says, the light in me sees and acknowledges the light in you. And I think there's something that happens when people are doing a similar internal work, that they see each other. So just to sort of bridge everything that you're saying together, the people that you are meditating with in this community, you're all in your own process. But when you look at each other, you know that you're each doing your own work, even though you don't know what that is. And you've taken that concept and you use it now with everything that you do, with the yoga, with the meditation, with your one on ones. And you're basically saying, I see you.
Yeah.
And that vibration rolls through you into them, whether it's through your hands or through your heart. When they're in your space, they feel, oh, wait, I can access that too. So you're helping them open the door.
Yeah, to feel it within themselves. As you're talking, what comes to mind is I have a brilliant acupuncturist that I work with who's become a really dear friend. And she studied in China, and she said that acupuncture is done in community in China because they understand this piece of frequency that you're talking about. And when one person, like they put the needles in to whatever it is that they need to help them come into balance and alignment, and then the next person, and maybe there's even 20 people in the room. And it's kind of like, what do they say? Clocks in the room, in the same room, all start to like, pendulate together, right, and tick together. And that's the same thing with our energy um, in acupuncture. And I feel that happen because I think meditation has like helped me hone a sensitivity on a pretty, because part of the meditation is about focusing the mind and honing a sensitivity to what's happening internally on these subtle levels. And so for me, what's happened is I can start to feel that in the room on a collective sort of level. And even though it's not cognitive, it's not in my head, it's more in my body, intuitive, like I can start to feel what others might need and sort of design a class so that as one person comes into alignment, it supports the person next to them coming into alignment, the next person, and the next person. And I've had such the honor of hearing people come into class. One of the first things I ask is, do you have any pain? Do you have any injuries? What do you need support with today? And I get to hear so many amazing stories. And I know you're a therapist, so you hear this too. And often people are saying the same thing. And I wish I could tell everybody that they're not alone, you know? like, oh my gosh, like 5 people today just, told me that they're working with grief, or, they have a hip pain. Let's explore that, because it's not different, like let's go into that. And so I feel like maybe like that frequency piece you're talking about, like maybe that's why somebody showed up today, because they knew that 3 other people in that class on some unconscious level were also dealing with something similar, and that they were going to support each other on an unconscious level, and that the energy, the group energy coming together was going to all bring us into alignment, so that we're all resourced internally, and that we can step off our mats and kind of face the day a little more, with a little bit more of that integrated or processed or more resourced.
So it sounds like there's this thread that comes through almost the people that gather um, in each of your sessions. And I don't know if you've made the connection that that thread is actually you. You thread them through your heart, right? So you
Mm.
open the space to what do people need to deal with today or work through, or how can I be supportive? And then they start to walk in that door, and it's like one person's threaded to the other, calling them all in to gather so that they
Mm.
can do it as community.
I love that visual. I love that. And I often talk about, Heart Math has got some really wonderful science on their website about this frequency and vibration that extends out. And so I'll often guide people in the beginning of class, like through the breath, that each breath is like a ripple in a pond that extends out, and that we fill the room with that, and that we all get to be held, like, I goosebumps talking about it, like we all get to be held like in this like vibration, and that our energy is way bigger than just our physical body. And I think meditation is what's helped me experience that, not just, know it in my head, which I can be really strong in my mind and in my thoughts, but like really feel it in my body. And then I get to feel that and benefit from it too. Like I feel like I'm being transformed in that space with everyone else as we practice together. We may come in with a lot of pain or ailments or feeling ungrounded, and it's like we all get to leave there together. And the energy and what we created in that space together is really sacred to me. And it gets to then be, sprinkled around our communities, because it doesn't stay here. It gets shared. And as my meditation teacher says, it's like, whatever we're dealing with, we don't keep it to ourselves, whether that is frustration or joy or, balance or, anger. So like when we can integrate it for ourselves, we definitely share that out into the world.
One of your greatest strengths, I'm not sure if you realize it,
Mm.
but you mentioned that you can be in your head.
Mhm.
One of your greatest strengths, in my opinion, is that yes, you can be in your head, but you can also be in your body, and you can help other people go from being in their head to in their body and integrating the two of them.
Yeah, that is a pathway. You're right. And I appreciate you pointing it out to me, so that I can kind of embody that too. Like, I think for the longest time, I was in my head as a protective mechanism, and meditation has allowed me to have both. Like, I can cognitively like engage here, but like I can feel my body. And that wasn't always the case, and meditation's given me that really beautiful experience. And, that leads to like another piece that is really near and dear to my heart as a social worker, is the social justice piece, and especially the consciousness and the awareness that's coming up even more recent, more clearly in recent times. Um, you know, especially here in the United States, and even parts of the world, we live in a culture that really benefits from us not being embodied. There's no shortage of corporations that want to sell us something. And, the culture is even wrapped around like these constructs of beauty and identity of, right, of what we should be. And I feel it in myself, and I can feel myself getting pulled. And it's sort of like I feel empowered and strong and connected to my body to have agency to like pull myself back, and so, and I'll say that in class sometimes, like we can use yoga practice as a form of resistance to keep the balance of your mind, because who benefits when we are completely out of our minds and ungrounded? We can use rest as a form of resistance, self-care as a form of resistance, and so this embodied peace, I feel like is a really powerful practice, especially right now, like on a social justice. And then the connection to each other, because I feel like when we feel that we're alone and separate, and meditation taught me that we are one, we are really powerful together.
So many amazing things for us to hear and understand. Thank you for your wisdom and for sharing it. Any final words for our listeners today? Anything you want to leave them with?
Mm, I hope that you can have the courage to drop in and listen to your own inner heart's calling. Along the way, yes, you will um, bump into past pains and tender spots. Um, but there's really healing on the other side of it. And I hope you just keep going, take in the resources, meet with people that, you can trust and love, and do the work together. But just keep going.
That's really beautiful.
Mm.
If someone wanted to start working with you or wanted more information about you, how would they find you?
Oh, yeah, I have an Instagram account called Student of Life 101. And I have a Facebook page, Christine Cipra Yoga and Wellness.
Love that. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you and I appreciate your time.
Uh, Thank you so much for sharing this space with me, Jill. I just adore you.
That's a wrap for this episode. Honor what landed, release what didn't, and we'll see you next time on The Healing Blueprint.